My mother's voice pierced through the kitchen like a whip as I stared down at the shrimp pasta on my plate. A lump rose in my throat before I even took a bite. At 16, I'd already learned that arguing only made things worse. But just looking at seafood sent my heart into a panic. "Mom, please," I whispered, my voice tight with fear. "You know what happened last time." "Nothing happened last time, except you acting like a drama queen." She slammed her palm onto the table, the plates and silverware jumping from the impact. "Your father and I are sick of your little stunts. These imaginary allergies, the whining, it ends here. My name is Amanda, and for as long as I can remember, my parents have refused to believe that I suffer from life-threatening food allergies. Every incident was dismissed as overreacting. Every warning sign ignored as if it were a teenage ploy. But my body always knew the truth, even when they didn't want to see it. It started early. I once ate a peanut butter sandwich and ended up gasping for air. My parents said it was just a tantrum. My face swelled from shellfish, and they blamed me for rubbing my eyes too hard. Every severe reaction was brushed off, every frightening moment explained away. They only grew more impatient, more irritated, convinced I was just trying to manipulate them. "Your sister never had any of these issues," my father would always say, motioning toward Kate. "Your perfectly healthy big sister can eat anything she wants. You just make this stuff up because you're jealous of the attention she gets." Kate was the star child, honor roll student, captain of a soccer team, and seemingly immune to every food on the planet. Meanwhile, I was labeled a family burden, the one who stirred up drama at every meal. That evening, I sat frozen before the plate of shrimp pasta, feeling the weight of Kate's gaze. She knew. She'd seen the reactions, seen my face swell, heard my labored breaths. But in our house, backing up my delusions was off limits. "Eat," my father demanded, his voice sharp and final. "You're not leaving the table until your plate is clean." My hands trembled as I picked up the fork. After years of being conditioned to obey, defiance seemed pointless. Maybe if I just took tiny bites, small enough to keep the reaction mild, I could make it through. The first taste hit like fire. Immediately, I felt the swelling begin on my tongue, and the tightness in my throat returned. But my parents stared at me with expectation, daring me to prove them wrong. Tears ran silently down my cheeks as I forced myself to chew and swallow. "See," my mother said with smug satisfaction as I choked down another bite. "Nothing's happening. We told you it's all in your head." But it wasn't. By the third bite, I was wheezing. My face flushed with heat as the first signs of hives prickled my skin. Still, I kept eating. What else could I do? I don't feel good," I whispered, barely audible. "Stop acting," my father snapped. "Finish your food." Kate shifted in her seat. "Dad, maybe." "Not another word," he cut her off. "We're not feeding into this anymore." Halfway through the plate, the room began to tilt. Every breath became a struggle. My throat tightened further, each inhale desperate and shallow. My fork slipped from my shaking hand and clattered onto the table. "I need help," I gasped. But they'd already started clearing the dishes. They didn't even look at me. "Go to your room if you're going to perform like this," my mother said coldly. "We're done indulging your nonsense." I stumbled from the table, barely managing to climb the stairs. As I collapsed onto my bedroom floor, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror. My face was puffy and red, covered in angry welts. My lips were turning blue. This was bad, worse than it had ever been before. With the last ounce of strength I had, I grabbed my phone and typed out a desperate message to the only adult I thought might believe me, Mrs. Wilson, the school nurse who always noticed when I avoided lunch. "Can't breathe. Parents won't help. Allergic reaction." Darkness edged my vision as I hit send. A few seconds later, my phone pinged. "Sending help." Hold on. That was the last thing I remembered before everything went black. The distant wail of sirens and my mother's voice floating from downstairs. "I don't know who called an ambulance, but Amanda is fine. She's just looking for attention." But I wasn't fine. And finally, someone else was going to see that. I woke to the soft, steady beep of hospital monitors. Harsh fluorescent lights made me squint as my eyes tried to focus. My throat ached. My body felt drained. But I could breathe. Really breathe. "Welcome back, Amanda," a soft voice said. I turned to see Dr. Martinez standing beside my bed, her expression gentle but serious. You experienced a severe anaphylactic reaction. If Mrs. Wilson hadn't called when she did, she didn't need to finish the sentence. The gravity in her voice said everything. Across the room, my parents stood stiffly in the corner, facing a woman in a sharp business suit. I'd later learn her name was Sarah Thompson, from Child Protective Services. Their faces were tight, tinged with both irritation and unease. We had no idea, my mother was saying, her voice more subdued than I'd ever heard it. She's always been overly sensitive about food. We never thought. Mrs. Wilson entered the room, her usual calm demeanor replaced with steel. I've been keeping detailed notes on Amanda's condition for months. I've seen the swelling. I've documented her reactions. I've tried calling you both several times. We never got any calls. My father insisted, defensive. Mrs. Wilson pulled out a thick folder. I have records of 17 different attempts, emails, voicemails, all raising concern about Amanda's possible allergies and advising medical evaluation. Sarah Thompson jotted something in her notepad as my parents shifted awkwardly. Dr. Martinez turned back to me. Her voice was soft but firm. Amanda, I need to know, how long has this been happening? I looked at my parents. Years of fear and silence held my voice hostage. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the medication giving me courage, or maybe I was simply done suffering in silence. Since I was small, the signs had always been there. I remembered whispering about the peanut butter sandwich when I was 6, the shellfish at Aunt Linda's wedding when I was 9. Each time, my warnings were brushed aside. She's exaggerating, they'd say. She's exaggerating. My mother said again, trying to interrupt. Dr. Martinez's voice cut through her objections like a blade. Mrs. Parker, your daughter's blood work shows dangerously elevated antibodies. This is consistent with severe food allergies. This isn't exaggeration or imagination. It's a life-threatening medical condition that's been repeatedly dismissed. I watched as the color drained from my parents' faces. The hospital has already completed extensive allergy screening, the doctor continued. Amanda has serious allergic sensitivities to shellfish, peanuts, and several other foods. She must carry an EpiPen at all times. This is not negotiable. It's a matter of life or death. The CPS caseworker stepped forward, her voice firm and clear. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, we need to talk about a formal safety plan for Amanda. Forcing a child to eat foods they're allergic to falls under medical neglect. My parents looked stunned, like everything they thought they controlled was unraveling in front of them. My father opened his mouth to respond, but for once, he had nothing to say. That's when Kate rushed into the hospital room, panting and still in her soccer uniform. She hurried to my bedside, eyes glossy with tears. Amanda, her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I should have done something sooner. I should have. Miss Parker, Mrs. Wilson interrupted gently, turning toward my sister. Would you be willing to share what you told me last week? Kate straightened, wiping her eyes. I've been sneaking Benadryl into Amanda's room, she admitted. After every reaction, I knew Mom and Dad weren't going to do anything, so I used my allowance to buy some. I even took pictures of her swelling, her hives. I've been saving it, just in case. Catherine, my mother gasped, utterly shocked. Why would you? Because she's my sister. Kate shouted, her voice rising with years of pent-up frustration. Because I was terrified she'd die. Because every time you made her eat something that hurt her, I had to lie in bed and listen to her gasp for breath through the wall. The CPS worker scribbled rapidly into her notepad. I'm recommending immediate medical intervention and supervised family counseling, she said. Amanda will remain under hospital care for now, and going forward, all contact will be monitored. My parents stood motionless. The illusion of the perfect family had shattered, replaced by hard truth and undeniable evidence. Lab reports, Kate's documentation, Mrs. Wilson's records, and my own body's desperate response to a single meal. As the adults discussed terms and next steps, Kate slipped her hand into mine. It's going to be different now, she whispered. I promise. Looking at her determined expression, at Mrs. Wilson standing like a shield beside the bed, and at Dr. Martinez's unwavering calm, something I hadn't felt in a long time stirred in my chest hope. For the first time in years, my illness wasn't invisible anymore. And I wasn't alone. The 6 months after that night brought changes I never thought possible. A judge ordered that I temporarily move in with my Aunt Claire, my mother's unconventional, fiercely independent sister. Unlike my parents' spotless suburban home, Aunt Claire's apartment was warm and lived in, filled with mismatched chairs, unfinished art projects, and best of all, a kitchen free of every single allergen I reacted to. "Here's your new medical ID bracelet," she said one morning, handing me a silver band engraved with my allergies. "And I've labeled everything in the pantry. Green stickers mean totally safe. Yellow means double-check the ingredients first." It was overwhelming, the care, the planning, the attention. I wasn't used to being protected. At my new school, Mrs. Wilson had helped set up a formal 504 plan. Teachers were aware. The cafeteria staff had guidelines. I carried my EpiPen in my backpack, not hidden or shamefully stuffed at the bottom, but easily accessible. For the first time, I didn't feel embarrassed about it. Meanwhile, my parents, now required to attend regular family therapy, were beginning to come to terms with what they'd done. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But they were trying. I've been reading about anaphylaxis. My mom admitted in one session, her voice small and cracking. "When I think about how close we came to losing you," she couldn't even finish the thought. Kate came by often. Our bond had never been stronger. She'd become my fiercest defender, even starting a food allergy awareness club at her school. "You should see the kitchen at home now," she grinned one afternoon. "They've thrown out everything you're allergic to. Dad even yelled at Grandma for trying to bring shrimp to Sunday dinner." The biggest surprise came 3 months after the hospital. I was sitting at the allergy-safe table in the cafeteria when Jessica Chun, the most popular girl in school, sat down beside me. "My little brother just got diagnosed with a peanut allergy," she said. "My parents are freaking out. Would you maybe talk to them? You seem to really know what you're doing." That conversation led to another. Then another. Before I knew it, I was running a teen support group for students living with food allergies. The girl who had once been silenced was now helping others speak up. During one family therapy session, my father finally broke. "I was wrong," he said, tears spilling over. "I was so obsessed with keeping up the image of a perfect family, I couldn't admit that something was actually wrong. Every time you try to talk to us about your allergies, I treated it like a threat instead of a cry for help." Dr. Reynolds, our therapist, nodded gently. "That's a huge step, Mr. Parker." My mom reached across the table, her hand trembling as it closed over mine. "We've started parenting classes," she said. "We're learning about medical advocacy and how to respond in an emergency. We want to rebuild trust, Amanda. However long that takes. It wouldn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But for the first time, I believe them." Exactly 1 year after the shrimp pasta incident, I stood on stage at a district health awareness night, facing an auditorium filled with parents and educators. Mrs. Wilson sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Aunt Claire recorded every word for her advocacy blog. Even my parents were there, seated quietly in the middle row. "Food allergies aren't imaginary," I said into the microphone, my voice confident and unwavering. "They're not attention-seeking. They're not drama. They are a medical condition that demands awareness, compassion, and immediate action. But with the right tools and support, they don't have to define or limit a person's life." I knelt to her level and showed her my silver medical bracelet, gleaming under the lights. "Being different isn't weird," I told her. "It's just part of who you are. And the people who truly care about you will help keep you safe." I glanced up and saw my family watching us. Aunt Claire's eyes sparkled with pride. Kate gave me a double thumbs up. Even my parents, still learning, still growing, smiled through misty eyes. Later that evening, while Aunt Claire and I cooked together in our allergen-free kitchen, she paused and asked softly, "Do you ever think about moving back in with your parents?" "They've changed a lot," I said, thoughtfully reading the ingredients on a new spice jar. "I see it, but I'm not ready. I like it here." She pulled me into a hug, firm and warm. "You'll always have a place here, kiddo. Safe kitchen, safe space, safe love." And that, I realized, was what I'd been searching for all along, not just physical safety, but emotional freedom. The freedom to speak, to be heard, to set boundaries, and to live as I truly am. My medical bracelet shimmered as I moved, catching the light. Not a symbol of restriction anymore, but a reminder. I was no longer invisible, and I was no longer alone.